Welcome back to another FPL video. This is going to be the best wildcard team for Blank Gameweek 28, and this will also help you cover Double Gameweek 29 and the last 9 fixtures of the season from Gameweeks 30 to 38. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, what you would change, and how are you going to approach these doubles and blanks coming up also in 32 and 34. And we're also going to have some other doubles and blanks in the future as well, but especially doubles in 37, and we might even have one before Gameweek 32 as well for the likes of Brighton. But if you end up enjoying this video, be sure to drop it a like, and let's try to get this to over 300. And we're also looking to push on towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. There's going to be more UCL fantasy content and FPL content heading your way over the next few weeks, and also some streams, so be sure to check them out as well. But without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. Just like in Gameweek 26 and 27, I would go for the same 2 goalkeepers in Kepa Arrizabalaga and David Raya, especially if you're looking to bench boost in Gameweek 29. Now, one question I've been asked a lot recently is, if you had all the chips, when would you use them? And I can't generalize this and apply it to every single team out there. There will be some differences, and maybe for your team, there will be some changes, and you might need to use it in a certain game week that I haven't mentioned here. But in terms of the bench boost, I think Gameweek 29 looks like the best. If not, 34 would probably be the next best option. And to be fair, if you wildcard now, any single Gameweek coming up looks really promising for the bench boost. But I would highlight Gameweek 29 or 34 for that one specifically. If you've also got the triple captain, I would use it in 34 unless you don't have a bench boost, and in that case, I would use it in 29 on someone like Rashford, for example. The free hit I think could be really well used in Gameweek 32, but if you want to be aggressive and using it on a double game week, then maybe 34, 37 looks good, but I would go for Gameweek 32. And then for the final one, the wild card, this is a bit tricky, but I would definitely use it between Gameweeks 28 and 33. I think those two are the standouts, but there might be a gimmick like 30 which could be really well suited to your team as well. So it just depends, but I think around that time period would also be very well for your team. It would be the right decision for you. But I've gone for Ryan Kepa once again because they both feature in Gameweek 28. You don't necessarily need that, to be fair. You bench one of them anyway, and I would probably favour Kepa Arrizabalaga, as we'll talk about later on, using FPL.team. But they're really good for the bench boost in 29. Brentford have a fixture swing very soon, but David Raya can still get these save points and bonus at times, and Brentford have been very impressive in the last few weeks. And actually, they only lost once in the last 12 Premier League games. They were 12 unbeaten, lost to Everton, but they're still a good team, and they're very difficult to beat as well. And David Raya is arguably the best FPL option other than Ivan Toney. And as for Kepa Arrizabalaga, Chelsea have been improving recently. He's the #1 goalkeeper right now, so even when Edouard Mendy fully returns and he's competing for a spot, you would back Kepa to keep his spot. And Chelsea have been a bit impressive in recent games, winning 3 in a row, including the Champions League winner against Borussia Dortmund, and I think they will continue to improve. And defensively, they've never been bad all season. They've always conceded not that many chances or that many goals, and they've kept some clean sheets in the process as well. And that's why I've always recommended Kepa Arrizabalaga, who's firmly in the top 3 goalkeepers alongside David Raya and Nick Pope. There's only one change to the defensive line from last week, and that is Ben Chilwell in for Ben Mee. And we don't have a double game week in 27, of course, which boosts the appeal of Ben Mee over someone like Chilwell, who's been in great form recently. Now, as I discussed in my best free hit team video, it's not a guarantee that Chilwell will start in game week 28 and both in 29. I think the main concern would be after the international break, with the future Champions League games in mind as well. That's where Chilwell could be rested and rotated, especially when more Chelsea defenders come back into the fore, and they can play Cucurella as a left wing back sometimes and rest Chilwell in certain Premier League games. I think he'll start both games in 29 and in 28, but there is a possibility that he doesn't, and there'll be one game where he doesn't feature, and that will definitely not be ideal in either scenario. But Ben Chilwell for me is the best Chelsea defender and probably the best Chelsea asset from the outfield players. I've also gone for Stupinian, who blanks in 28 and could miss out the first game in 29 because of his international duties, but there's still a 3 or 4 day kind of break in between Ecuador's second game and also Brighton's first game coming back in Gameweek 29. I wouldn't be too concerned, to be quite frank with you. I think Stupinian will be able to feature and he will start. Of course, there is a possibility he doesn't, but I wouldn't look too much into that. If you just aren't sure and you don't want to go for Stupinian, then I probably would go for someone like Luke Shaw. The problem with that is that Casemiro is suspended for the next 4 games in all competitions, 3 in the Premier League, because of his red card. It was his second of the season, and therefore it's now a 4-game suspension. So I think United will struggle a bit defensively, They've also not got Sabitzer for the time being, although he should return very soon, maybe against Fulham in the FA Cup. And they also don't have Eriksen still, so it could be a pivot of Fred and McTominay, which isn't ideal for Man United, but they can still get the results. They have actually done pretty well recently when Casemiro has missed out. Then we've gone for a double up in Newcastle defensively with Botman and Kieran Trippier. And honestly, you could go for any Newcastle defender, whether it's Dan Burn, Fabian Schär, who's got the best goal scoring threat. But Botman came very close to scoring against Wolves. He's very good for bonus points. Actually, in terms of points per 90, he is the best Newcastle defender other than the obvious Kieran Trippier, who's always going to be in these teams. But you might not be that confident of Newcastle defenders. That's understandable, but a good fixture in 28, a decent double in 29, and I think Newcastle will slowly but surely get those clean sheets once again. And finally, we've got Zinchenko. You've got Gabriel, who's got the biggest goal scoring threat. As I said in my free hit team video, he scored 10 goals in the last 3 seasons, the first defender to reach that milestone. But I would go for Zinchenko for the bonus points. He's been the most informed Arsenal defender in the last few weeks. He's actually won Player of the Month consecutively in January and February. He's been very impressive for the Gunners, and I would go for this back 5. And ultimately in Game Week 29, you could sell Zinchenko for Luke Shaw. The midfield 5 is also very similar. I think the key change here would be James Maddison, who I talked about buying in around Game Week 28 with the Game Week 27 wildcard squad, but here you can just buy him in instantly, and he hasn't been in great form, and I think that could be a blessing in disguise. The fact that he hasn't accumulated too many bonus points or points overall in recent games, that will put buyers off and those that maybe were interested at some point, and I think he could remain a very good differential for Game Weeks 28 and 29. Leicester are an awful team, but they still have some decent FPL options, Iheanacho being another one. You've got Danny Ward as a really budget goalkeeper, but the standout is always James Maddison. If he can stay fit and build some momentum and match sharpness, he's easily one of the best midfielders around his price, and I would go for him right now on the wild card, and I think he just fits the bill really well. In Game Week 28 he features against Brentford, and we're not going for any Brentford defenders in terms of Game Week 28 to start, and David Raya will be on the bench, so you don't have any conflicts of interest there that some people like myself will have if I decide to stick with Ben Mee, and then I'll also buy in James Maddison. So I think he's a really good option in Game Week 28, but more so in Game Week 29 with that very favourable double from an attacking perspective at least, because Leicester have been awful all season. I've gone for a double up in Arsenal midfield once again, this time with Martinelli and Saka, but you could easily make a case for Odegaard, Leandro Trossard even. It's very difficult to pick the best Arsenal players, especially in the midfield, but Martinelli has been in great form in the last few Premier League games. He scored in, I think, 4 of the last 5 matches. He's been in electric form, and even when he hasn't played too well overall, he's getting the FPL points, which is very important. Saka is in here as well, and whilst Odegaard is better for bonus points, and he also scored in the last Premier League game, while Saka was a bit underwhelming, I would still favour Saka a little bit more, but you could go for Odegaard, and that could also help you a lot in terms of buying Salah in Game Week 29, which we'll also discuss very, very soon. And the last midfielders include Matoma and Rashford, who blank now, so there's not much to discuss about them this week, but they make for great options, even for the captaincy in Game Week 29, especially Marcus Rashford, and I think these are 2 of the best midfielders in the game. It's very difficult to fill up your 5-man midfield without Liverpool, Man United, Brighton or Man City assets, but I think this is the best way to do it, and we go for a 3-man midfield in Game Week 28. To complete this team, we have gone for no Erling Haaland for the second time running in these wildcard videos. It won't be the case, I think, in Game Week 30, but for the time being, let's enjoy this moment because Erling Haaland is such a template pick. Everyone has him. I've still got him in my current team selection, but I'm looking to sell him to have that 10 or even 11-man squad in Blank Gameweek 28, and I can always buy him back in a few weeks' time. And I think the main kind of candidate to replace him for the next 2 game weeks is Ollie Watkins, and I think this makes for a really good front line. 3 forwards that have scored more than 100 points, and they've been very consistent, especially in recent weeks. In the case of Ollie Watkins, Ivan Toney, Harry Kane have been consistent over the course of the season, and actually another really big advantage is Ivan Toney and Kane are on penalties. That's a huge bonus, and they also are very good penalty takers at that, especially Ivan Toney, who's never missed for Brentford and in the Premier League. So I think the front 3 speaks for itself. You've got a few other candidates like Havertz, who's got 3 home games in a row, Iheanacho, but I honestly don't trust Havertz and Chelsea attackers at the moment. I know Chelsea have looked better in recent weeks. They scored 2 against Borussia Dortmund, 3 against Leicester. And you can start to consider the likes of Felix, Havertz himself, and maybe someone like Mudryk. But to be quite frank with you, I still think there are better options from other teams. And would I go for Havertz over Ivan Toney, Watkins, or Harry Kane? I wouldn't. The same goes for Iheanacho. And I've already got one piece of the Leicester attack. I think that's enough because Leicester are far too inconsistent and unreliable. And Maddison's the only one I would fully trust from that team. So hopefully you get that understanding. If you disagree, by the way, let me know because there could still be some other gems that deserve a recommendation or more analysis as well. I think Trossard is one of the most in-form attackers in the league. Probably the best January signing so far with 1 goal and 5 assists. Very lucky to have that goal chalked off against Leicester as well. He's been in terrific form, so you might even consider him as well over an Arsenal asset like Martinelli or Saka. And remember, a lot of these assets will be for 1 game week only, especially the Arsenal players, which you can start to trim down in game week 29, especially if you're looking to bench boost and try to get in some more Man United players like Bruno Fernandes, Luke Shaw at the back, or maybe even Mohamed Salah in the midfield as well. But I think the front three speaks for itself. I don't think anyone can really say it's a bad front three. Of course, you can maybe put another name in the hat. That's completely understandable. But I don't think I would change anything personally, even after more analysis and research. This is what it all comes down to. In Blank Gameweek 28, I would go for this starting 11, and we don't have too many benching dilemmas, to be quite frank. The only one is the goalkeeper, and I would favour Kepa Arrizabalaga, but because we have Ben Chilwell as well, you might think, you know what, I want to go for David Raya and spread the defensive risk as a result. But you've also got Maddison in there in this wildcard squad, so you will also have a clash if you do go for David Raya. So it's up to you how you weigh it up, but I would personally go for a double up in Chelsea defensively at home to Everton, who have one of the worst away records all season, even under Sean Dyche. So Kepa's in there with Ben Chilwell, Trippier, Botman and Zinchenko as the back four, Saka, Martinelli and Maddison as the midfield three, and then finally a front three of Watkins, Harry Kane and Ivan Toney. And then the big question now remains the captaincy, and I would slightly favour Harry Kane at this moment in time, but I think Saka, Martinelli and maybe someone like Watkins could definitely enter the conversation from those available this week. And I would personally favour Harry Kane right now, although you could argue someone like Martinelli or Saka have a high ceiling at home to Crystal Palace, who haven't won a single Premier League game in 2023. But Arsenal fans will know that Crystal Palace have been a thorn in their side for quite a few years now, so it won't be an easy game in my opinion, despite the completely different seasons that both of them are undertaking so far. But this is a really solid 11 for Blank Gameweek 28. It's arguably pretty much the same as the free hit team, and that is the benefit of the wildcard, whether you did it in Game Week 26, 27 or in 28. The fact that you can pretty much have the best team possible in Game Week 28 and also in Game Week 29 for the bench boost, and you optimize these 2 game weeks alongside Game Week 27 if you had it as well and played it in time for that. And you also are well set up for the future from game weeks 30 to 38. But now let's talk about one more game week before wrapping up this video, and that is double game week 29. So with a -4 hit, you can build a team with 13 double game weekers, and the only single game week options would be Harry Kane and either Bukayo Saka or another Arsenal midfielder who's cheaper. So the 2 transfers that I've actually proposed here for a -4 hit include Luke Shaw and Bruno Fernandes coming in, and the ones making way would be Zinchenko and also Martin Odegaard / Martinelli in this case. But you could also bring in Salah. If you really want Salah in game week 29, then what you could do is instead of getting rid of Martinelli or Odegaard, you can get rid of Saka, and that gives you the funds needed to then get in Mohamed Salah in for Bruno Fernandes, and that could be the way you go. Let me know what you prefer. Do you prefer the combination of Salah plus Martinelli, Trossard or Odegaard, or do you prefer the one with Bruno Fernandes and Bukayo Saka? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I actually prefer Bruno Fernandes a little bit more at this moment in time over Mohamed Salah based on the fixtures, but in the long term, until game week 38, I would probably argue that Salah is the slightly better option, and he's been more consistent in recent weeks. You might also not trust Luke Shaw, or you don't want to triple up in Man United. That's completely understandable. You could actually stick with 1 in Rashford, go for 2, or you could go for a triple up. It's completely up to you, and this wildcard will give you the flexibility to bring in whichever players you want for game week 29. But as you can see, the total points or the predicted points according to FPL.team is very high in double game week 29, no matter which duo you go for. I think it is slightly higher though if you go for Saka and Bruno Fernandes instead of Salah and Martinelli. But this looks really solid. You've got Kepa and Raya, you've got Harry Kane, Martinelli and Botman on the bench, 2 single game week options who look really good with good fixtures, and also Sven Botman as well with a double. I mean, this looks like a fantastic team that should get plenty of points. I think the captaincy would be pretty straightforward. I'd go for Marcus Rashford personally, but you also have a few other options to consider, like Matoma even, and also Mohamed Salah, Bruno Fernandes, whoever you bring in as well. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Which duo do you prefer? How would you set up for Game Week 29? What are your transfer plans? And how are you dealing with Blank Gameweek 28? Which is right in front of us, and you can't sacrifice a certain game week just to get as many doublers as possible as well. You want to strike that balance, and sometimes the single game week options can outscore the double game week ones, as we've seen countless times this season. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to over 300 likes. Let's keep on pushing towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and you can check the links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, the Discord server, the FPL League, and Sorare, which is quite refreshing and completely different to FPL, UCL Fantasy, or any fantasy game that we've covered on this channel. So I'd highly recommend you check all those links in the description below and sign up to Sorare. And I wish you all the best of luck for Blank Gameweek 28 and the rest of the season. And I'll see you next time.